Hey, single moms, welcome back to the Faith Summit. I am your host, Aisha Taylor, and I help single moms to grow their faith, walk in purpose, and own their finances. So, how has the summit been for you thus far? I know for me, it has been amazing, and the feedback has been wonderful. That this is so transformational. And as I mentioned at the beginning of each and every interview, make sure you're grabbing your all access pass because that all access pass is your key to unlock all the replays. Because remember, once the new interview starts, the old ones go away, and you have to have that all access pass to be able to unlock the vaults where all the interviews are housed. And also make sure you're sharing your feedback, your ahas, and everything that you are learning in our Facebook group. So that way we understand what it is that you're not only taking away, but you're also implementing it, right? Because the Bible says faith without works is dead, which means that if you're just listening and not taking action on the things that you're hearing, it's not going to work. And so we want to make sure that we want to know what you are holding yourself accountable to doing. And also, when you get your all access pass, you also get a bonus 20-minute call with me. And so that way I can help you to figure out what your next looks like. So with that being said, we are gonna get started on our next interview. And so I have to do it. Like I feel like whenever I say your name, it's like I say it with such emphasis, like it's like the price is right or something. And so welcome Shalena Diva to the summit.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me and trusting me with your platform. So I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm just so happy you're coming, like, because you don't understand, like, this story that you told me. Actually, you didn't tell me. I felt like you told me, like, for such a time as this, right? A long time ago. Like, we've known each other for a while, but I don't even know if you remember this. So, I think you spoke at a conference and you shared your story about your single motherhood journey and all the obstacles that you had to go through and how you took that and started to encourage and uplift other people and to really be able to see you now like all these years later married and just thriving. I think back to that time when
Mhm.
you're talking about like it was almost like at your lowest point,
Mhm.
and it just stuck with me. And whether you know it or not, like that has been a sense of encouragement to me, even on my own single motherhood journey, to be able to see that where we start isn't where we finish. And where we
Mhm.
start, God has a plan for us. And if we're just faithful and we keep doing the work and keep believing that we will overcome. And so I was so excited to have you on because I know that your story was such a source of inspiration for me. And I just wanted to invite you on so the ladies can hear your story as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So you're actually referencing a conference I spoke at that was 8 years ago. That was 2014. So that was 8 years ago. Actually,
Way, but
this
that was
month.
actually before I had kids,
Yeah,
before
oh,
I was even
way
pregnant.
before you,
Yes.
way before you had children. It was and that's, I know we're going to get into the story, but I just want to share that with um the single mothers who are tuning in, is that as much as you can slow down, and if something pricks your spirit or if something just catches your interest, it was meant for you to hear that for a reason. It may not be for that time, but it's for a reason. And I'll give you two instances, because at the time, March of 2014, Aisha did not have children. And she was, she was out doing her thing. We were at a women's empowerment conference. So, so for her to, for one, humble herself to listen to my story, because it's so easy to be like, well, that's not me, I can't relate, but to humble herself to listen to my story, you'll never know what kind of gems you can glean. And also, sometimes God is giving you a game plan, but you don't know it, right? And I'm giving you two instances. One, I used to do a morning prayer call at 5 a.m. And this woman, she talked about how her son's father took her son away from her children, and how she missed her son, and she's like, her son was broken, and I couldn't relate at the time. But when I started going through my story, her story came back to my remembrance. And I remember how she felt, and how deeply she was hurt. But because I had limited experience, I couldn't really empathize a lot with her, but her words came back to me. That was one instance. Another instance is my girl, Wendy Williams. I love me some Wendy Williams. I don't care what nobody has to say. Listen, listen, listen. In 2007 or 6, Wendy Williams was probably still on the radio here in Philly. And a woman called in, and she said, the woman was like, I have 3 children, and I'm with my fiance or whatever, and he's not treating me right, and I want to leave. And Wendy was like, listen, you have 3 children. You cannot just up and leave. You need, she said, unless he's like abusing you, she was like, you have to formulate a plan. She's like, it's going to take you at least 2 to 3 years. And when I was listening, I'm like, what? I'm like, why didn't Wendy just tell her to leave? But years later, when I felt that I had to make that kind of transition, Wendy's words of wisdom came back, and her words were, you need to plan. If you're in school, you need to go to school. You need to pick up a trade. You need to plan, you need to save. And so it was interesting. Those are just 2 instances where something I heard that I really couldn't relate to in the moment, they came back to me when I needed it. So just kind of glean something from everyone. And just because you're not in that situation right now, don't disregard it, and pray about it, but don't disregard it.
I love that. That is so important of how you said, don't disregard it, because there are certain things that, and I've been in a similar situation. Like I just shared that example with you. When you said March 2014, I'm like, man, that was a whole year before I even got pregnant. Like,
Mm.
it's just God knows what's going to happen. And so he places us strategically in different situations to be able to hear from certain people, because he knows that you're going to need something to hang on to in the future. And I can just, my mind is starting to race with so many different instances where I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember hearing that from that person a few years ago. Oh my gosh, I remember hearing that. And it all comes back. And so nothing is wasted. So definitely tune in and listen and take notes and really listen to your spirit to see what resonates for you, because that's either going to be something for now or the future. Or who knows, you might end up running into someone else. This has happened to me too, where I hear somebody's story and I'm like, wow, that was powerful. But then I don't need it for me. But then I run into somebody a few weeks later or like a year later. And I'm like, you know what? I heard this story. And then I'm able to encourage them along your journey as well. So that is powerful. Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
So can you take us on that journey of where you were with the story you told in March 2014? Because I don't want to start summarizing it because I still remember it, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to kind of tell you guys the end first, because sometimes, we can leave out some details, some things we may not remember. But I will say this, my ending now is the prayers that I prayed since 2010, 2011. So I just want you all to keep that in mind. All right. And where I'm at today, with my son's father. And when I tell the story, he's just a character in it. And I'm just telling you what had happened. I'm able to tell my story from a place of like, this is what happened. This is how it affected me. And this is how I feel, without any venom, without any animosity. You know what I mean? Because that can cloud a story sometimes. But I will tell you, and it's so funny, right before I hopped on this call with you, I was talking to my son's father, and we have a great relationship today. But it wasn't always like that. So now I just want to say that, because there are some women who they're single, so they're not with their children's father. We don't know if father could have died, whatever may have happened. But many times, all we want is peace. All we want is respect, mutual respect. We want peace. We want our children to feel love from both people. We want our children to see us respecting each other in front of them. And we want our kids to feel safe. Like, I have a mom and I have a dad who, I have parents who both love me. And I don't know about anybody else, but that has been my prayer for so many years. And today, that's my reality. So I started dating my son's father in 2006, and it was very unlikely. He's 16 years my senior. So but he's like a young, like you meet some men and they're older, but they're youthful, whatever. So we started dating in 2006, and we moved along pretty quickly. Like, I moved in. We were engaged to be married by like 2007 on Valentine's Day. Took me to this fancy restaurant downtown Philly, the Pyramid Club, and it was great. But shortly after that, I was like, things started to change, and we started to grow apart. By 2011, my nephew was murdered in June of 2011, June 30th. And some things happen in your life that shake you to your core, and it really makes you evaluate your life. And I'm like, life is short. And I knew I wasn't happy, and I knew he wasn't happy. It was to the point where we had a three-story home. I was sleeping on the third floor. He was sleeping on the second floor. And y'all know what that is. You know what I mean? It's like you become roommates, and it just wasn't pleasant. And I was very sensitive at the time. And not that there's anything wrong with being sensitive, but the woman I am today, I would have handled things differently. So I was just like, and I wasn't sure of myself, and I needed validation, especially from him. So I just felt like, what's wrong with me? My weight was like fluctuating. I had my son in 2008. Shortly after that, my hair started falling out because, for one, I guess it was the hormones, but two, I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't eating nutritious foods because I was like depressed, and I'm like a short person. So if I have a bald spot, everybody gonna see it. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I would go to the hairdresser, like clumps of my hair would fall out. So my weight was like crazy. I'm sure it was I was dealing with postpartum depression. My hair was falling out, and I'm in a relationship where I don't feel adequate anymore. I know, like, we're not. I don't think he loves me anymore. And every time we were supposed to get married, he will always push the goalpost back. Like, well, you don't cook enough, you don't clean enough, you don't do a lot of things enough. Like, and I'm just being honest and real. It was like, to me, the goalpost was always being moved back. And when I look at what I went through back then versus now, and I'm like, it's so weird. So I'm holding on, thinking we're gonna get married, but knowing and feeling like I'm not adequate, and knowing that we're not into each other like we used to be. He has several offices. I used to run one of his offices, and it was just crazy. I had like no time for me, no time for my dreams. Then something in my life happened, and it was called Facebook, around like 2010, 2011, and I just got hooked on it, and I started. Back then, I didn't know what it was called. No one really knew what it was called. But I started building a platform. I created a blog, ShalenaDIVA.com, and I was helping women share their stories, and I was empowering women. And this was super, super fun. And I'm meeting all these people, and I'm empowering women. But I'm like, but as soon as I get home and I cross the threshold, I'm depressed. I'm sad. I'm crying. Like, I'm going through all these changes. So after a while, I was just like, you know what? He's not happy. I'm not happy. And something has to give. So a friend of mine invited me to a women's empowerment conference in 2012. Yeah, 2012. She invited me to a women's conference, Spark and Hustle. And so I went, and the women were talking, and it felt really good. And remember, we say when God gives you little hints and signs. So they were talking about being fired from their jobs and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is really crazy. I'm thinking I'm working for the family, so I'm secure, right? So by then, I knew that I had reached the end of my rope. Like, I wasn't happy. But see, what happens when you start empowering yourself? You start eating healthy. You start taking care of your hair. You start taking care of your skin. You just basically start loving on yourself on the level that you know how. people start to notice, and it can become frightening to some people, and it's really liberating, and you don't know how liberating it is until you're put in a situation and you're like, oh wow. So I was like built, I was in my faith, like I was my prayer life was on point. I'm being healthy. I lost weight naturally. My hair started growing, and I started a YouTube channel talking about like natural hair. And it seemed like the more I was pouring into myself, the further apart we became. Like that's a sign too. When you're with someone, this is not only romantic, but when you start up leveling yourself, you start loving yourself, you start empowering yourself. Pay attention to the people who start pulling away, because that's a sign. You know, the Bible says, write the vision and make it plain, so that he that readeth may run. It don't tell you which way they run, and no, because when some people hear what you got, oh no, I'm out of here. And some people run, one want to help you, some people run away. Pay attention to that, because if you love someone, wouldn't you be happy that they're improving themselves? Wouldn't you be happy that they're finally getting it together? And you know, I was just empowering myself. So I went to this conference, all these women empowerment, and it was just wonderful. And remember, I had built a platform on Facebook, so people were like noticing me and stuff. It was just like crazy. Remember, this was 2012. This is 10 years ago. So I knew on that plane ride home, I said, girlfriend, you're not happy. You need to make some moves. So this is probably like the fourth time that I had left, but then came back. So don't think that it was like I had this Desiderado moment and I'm like, oh, well, I've had it. I know my rights. I'm leaving. No, sometimes you have to build that up. Remember Wendy Williams? Remember I told you? I remember what she said. And I was like, back in 2011, when I realized that I needed to make moves, I wasn't in a position financially to do it. So I had been preparing, and like from 2011 to 2012, I was mourning that relationship. I was literally grieving. Like, what would my life be without him? So take that time to plan. Listen to Aisha. Get your finances together. Get your credit together. Save up for a down payment for an apartment, or for a home. Or if you need different kind of services, find out what the requirements are. There's no shame with me. Like, figure out what the requirements are. If you need to get like free or low income housing or whatever you have to do, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in other people's lives that we forget who we are, and then you're really utterly not prepared. You need to start, oh, do I need to put in an application? Or if you want to go back to school, do I need to get financing? Do I need to get on? You need to start planning that stuff out, keeping it to yourself, plan it out, getting your credit together, getting your money together. So by 2012, I was in such a great position spiritually, emotionally. I had some money saved, and but I didn't know that all that work I was working on myself had helped me to get a voice. So I came back June 18th, 2012, and we had a blow up argument, and I was just like, you know what? That's it. I'm out. I'm leaving, and that's that. But remember, that was like the fourth time I left. So it was probably like, she'll be back. And I was probably thinking I'll probably be back too, but something was different this time. I was like, no. And my BMW was parked in the driveway. And I thought, you know what? I think this is a big moment in my life. Like, we have to start documenting our lives, you guys. Like, keep a journal, take pictures. I took a picture of my BMW in a driveway with all of my black trash bags in there. I'm like, 6 years of my life, and this is all I have, these trash bags or whatever. Remember, I had a son. We had a son at this point. He was 3 years old. And I was just like, you know what? I know I'm not really in a position to take my son. So I'm going to let him stay with his father, and I'll come back and get him. And I did that. That was like a mistake, because, well, it was a mistake. No, let me take that back. It wasn't a mistake, because I did what I thought was best at the moment. And remind you, this is Shalena of 2022 saying it was a mistake. So let me take that back, and I'm apologize to Shalena from 2012. That's not fair to her. Like, I made the best decision with the information I had. So I hope some of you just caught that, because a lot of times we're judging ourselves from where we are today. Like the Shalena today, oh no, now I know I can make things happen. I can do that. But back then I didn't have that. So why put myself down. You get what I'm saying, Aisha? Why do that now? That's not fair to
Absolutely.
2012. It's not
And I'm
fair.
glad, and I'm glad you actually did that. I'm glad you publicly just said that, like, because sometimes we can get down on ourselves for what mistakes we had and what mistakes we made and the decisions that we made in the past. Be like, well, why did I ever do that? And I know I can do that. And then what happens is I end up living in the past, trying in some way that's impossible to rewrite mistakes that can't be rewritten, they can't be changed. And I
Mm-mm.
remember my therapist told me before, she said, by living in the past, can you change anything? And I said, no. And she said, well, why do you continue to live in the past if you can't change anything? And I was like, I don't know. And then she said, but what is it doing to your future? And I said, it's robbing me of my future.
It
And she
is.
said, and you get to decide how you're going to proceed. I'm like, I don't want to rob from my future anymore. And so
Mm.
I'm so happy you just said that, because I truly believe that there's somebody listening right now who is sitting on the couch or sitting wherever you are, beating yourself up for old decisions and you
Mhm.
can't change them. So give yourself the grace to move forward. You did the best that you could in that situation. I remember hearing that's something that I remember my dad was speaking at my grandfather's funeral. And one of the things that I wish I recorded it, but I didn't. I was just listening to my dad speak. And one of the things that he said about my grandfather, he said he did the best that he could with the information that he had available. And that's all you can ask for, is that somebody does the best that they could. And there's so much grace in that, because we as people, we make mistakes. We make mistakes. And there's certain things that we do that we wish we didn't do, right? But there's grace in that. And we have to be able to give ourselves enough grace to know we did the best that we could with the information we had at the time. And that's all we can expect.
And you know, the beauty about that is that when you are really sincere and you, like you said, you're making the best decision with the information that you have, God does take care of the rest. You know, he really, really does. And so it's so funny because I've never described my decision to let my son stay with his father as a mistake. I've never ever. But I'm going to tell you why I think now I sort of kind of felt that way, but like I said, I forgive myself for thinking that way because when I look back, I can see God's hand all over it, and there's a reason why. So, I let my son stay with his father, and I'm like, okay, I'll get myself together. I'll come back and get my baby. But after I left him, literally the day I left my son's father, I became homeless because everything, I worked for him, I lived with him, and we had a beautiful lifestyle, like going to exotic trips and cruises, and I didn't have to work. So it was wonderful. Like we lived next to the Philadelphia police commissioner, like things were just lovely. But deciding to leave all that, and as they say, to bet on me, was like the best. And literally when I got to the end of the block, my BMW started like breaking down, and eventually a few months later it died. So I was like walking. I went from driving Benzes and Beamers and stuff to like literally walking. And it was just crazy. But I also took that time because I wasn't working. I took that time to really work on my dreams, and I wrote a book, and I wrote a play, and I just continued to build my online presence. So I was doing all these things that I always knew I could do, and I told him I would do. And I remember one time he was like, when I saw him after that, he was like, well, why couldn't you do any of those things when we were together? I was like, man, it was like, because you weren't supportive. Like, it was just, sometimes, y'all, it's really hard to grow in some of the situations that you're in. And a lot of times you may have to change environments. You may have to cut some people off so that you can grow, so that you can grow. And that was something really big too, because it might mean your parents or loved one, whomever, right? So I left him, and like I started flourishing, doing things I always wanted to do. I started empowering teen girls in schools and churches, and I started getting paid from that. But I was homeless though. I was living with different family members. And I don't know if y'all have ever been in a situation, but whenever a family gets tired of you, they can put you out. So it was just, I think I moved about 3 times, and it was really hard to be creative it's really hard to be creative in those kind of environments, but I did what I had to do, I needed to do. And I'm gonna say about 2013, I stayed with my sister, and it's like I had to go back home. Like my sister was like my mom. So before I ventured out into my own, got my own apartment. After I came back from Duke, I lived with my sister. So you know, when you first get a job, you're trying to get your feet wet. So my sister is like home. And in 2013, that was very humbling for me, because it's like I failed, I'm flat on my face, I'm back home. Like I done went all the way around the world, and here I go, I'm back home, I don't have my son. But sometimes, ladies, you got to go back to a place of love. You have to go back to your roots. You have to go back. And it may not be family, because some of you may, it may not be family, but sometimes you have to go back to a place where you can be rerouted in love. But my sister, she's like a drill sergeant, so it wasn't always like, touchy feely, but I know my sister loves me. But it was things I needed to learn from her. I needed to learn to become more disciplined, like with money. I needed to learn to how to, keep my house and be neat and just be responsible. My big sister taught me that. So it's like, with my college degree and all this stuff, I had to come back and like kind of be, they say, reparented. I was something. And during that time, I turned to YouTube. I got into Bob Proctor and Jim Rohn, and I just read a book a week. Jim Rohn was like, read a book a week. I'm like, a book a week? Is he crazy? But I read a book a week all 2013. Literally changed my life. And by the beginning of 2014, you guys, I was like, all right, I'm ready to have my own place. I'm ready to step out. I didn't have a lot of money saved. I was getting better when I have a lot of money, saved, but I started listening to like T. Harv Eker, and I just started believing in like money and being responsible. And I was just led, like, focus on what you want. And what I wanted is I wanted my own place, because now, oh, my son's father had took me to child support. I didn't even have any money. I didn't have a job, but he took me
Wait,
to
that's crazy.
You don't remember that part of the story? Yes. So
I forgot that part.
listen. So in 2013, he was like, you need to help me with him. You need to help me pay, some bills. I'm like, dude, I don't have any money. But by then I was on TV. I was in magazines, and like, to outside, that looked like you getting it, right? But a lot of these times with these TV appearances or magazines, they might cut you a little something, but it's not like that. But it's so funny how God will say he'll prepare a table before your enemies, but he's like, oh, she making money now, she better help me. I'm like, dude, I don't have the money. And he was like, you do. The next thing I know, he took me to child support court. I was like, dude. So we were in child support court. I think it started in June of 2013. We would go back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, I don't have any money. And his lawyer, he sick lawyers on me too. The lawyers were like, well, Your Honor, she went to Duke University and she can go and find a job, all this stuff. So that's going on. And at the same time, I had took him to custody court, because after I moved out, I felt as though he was keeping my son away from me. And it was getting harder and harder to see my son. So I'm like, okay, let me establish custody. For anyone out there, I know this is the state of Pennsylvania. Check your state's laws. However, if you have children or baby with someone, this is Pennsylvania. If you have children with someone and you are not married, your children belong to the state. They do not, like, they belong to the state. They don't belong to you. So, like I said, I didn't know all these things. So because we weren't married, he couldn't say I couldn't see my son, or I couldn't tell him he couldn't see my son, because nobody had custody. Isn't that weird?
That's weird. Actually, I did not know that. Like, I don't know if this is just a crazy law for Pennsylvania, but like, and you can see how that can actually be a bridge to create a lot of inequities. Like, like that's not your child? Like, really? Like, how does this stay? That's crazy to me.
So at the time, I remember, like, sometimes my son's father would be like, I felt like he was keeping him away from me. And I remember when I finally got to a person who could help me, she's like, well, Neither one of you have more rights than the other. No, there's no custody order in place. So when you're married and both of your names go down and you're married, you both, that's your child. But when you're not married, especially single moms, look into this. When you're not married, look into the rights that you have. But in Pennsylvania, that child belongs to the state. That's not, yeah. So him threatening me, or even if it's a guy listening, like the woman threatening you, like, I'm not gonna let you see your kids and y'all aren't married, she has no more rights than you do. But you know how many, and let's keep it real, how many women use that against men? If you're not, you have to look into your rights. So I was like, okay. So I wanted to establish custody because I didn't feel like he would be fair. And custody, remember, I didn't have a place to live. And I thought because I didn't have my own place to live that I couldn't go for full custody or I couldn't do whatever. And the woman said, no, like we go for what's in the best interest of the child. Once again, I didn't have the right information. So I was operating out of what I thought I could get versus really what the situation is. So all I'm saying is, I know we're saying we're making the best decisions with the information that we have. Learn the correct information. Take the time out because you could be shortchanging yourself. You know what I mean? Going for what you think you can get versus what you could. So we're in custody, and custody raged on for like 3 years. And that's a lot of money. And so, and that's separate from child support court. So child support started in June, and I would come like, I don't have any money. Like, seriously, I had no income coming in. And at the end of 2013, when I decided for me what I wanted, and I kept listening to people like Bob Proctor and Robert Anthony, he was like, listen, focus on what you want. Just focus on what you want. Don't look at the obstacles. Focus on what you want. I'm like, I want my own place. It needs to be a 2-bedroom apartment. I want the custody order. Like, that's what I wanted. And I remember December 31st, 2013. I came home and I'm like, ooh, maybe that child support case is over because I haven't received anything. I had just come from the eye doctor that day, and she told me that I was like going blind and all this stuff, and I had to get surgery. So I was already scared from that. And that was weighing on me heavy because I have glaucoma. So I get in the door and I see this thick middle envelope. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And it's like from Child Family Services. And I'm like, I was expecting a little thin letter, but this is a thick packet. What is going on? Don't you know that judge sided with my son's father and said, well, you know what? It's something called earning capacity. So even some single moms look into this stuff. All right. So in PA, what earning capacity means is you might not have a job. You might have quit your job. However, if you went out there to go and look for a job, this is the earning capacity that you have. Oh, with me, she went to Duke, Your Honor. She used to work for Chubb, Your Honor. This, that. So he was like, he went kind of light on me. He went very light on me, but see, my son's father's attorney knew what to argue. And the thing is, a lot of these things, you can't argue it without an attorney. You can't go in there by yourself like, I want to argue earning capacity. You know what I'm saying? So like, so I'm just, hopefully some gems I'm dropping for some people, but because some people say, oh, well, I don't get child support for my children because my children's father isn't working, da da da. Well, you don't know to argue earning capacity, or you know, whatever. So they hit me with that, and it was like, well, if you went out there, you can make at least $26,000. Now, me being a Duke girl, I was very offended. I was like, just $26,000.
Do you realize if I had pearls, I would be clutching like offensive?
But wait. A part of it was like, how dare he? But the other part was like, well, thank you so much, because now the amount I owe was based upon that amount. So part of me, I'm being honest. The part of me was like, how dare he? He doesn't know me. The other part was like, you know what? Thank you for that. No, I appreciate it, because what that meant was I now, based upon $26,000 that I was not making, I now had to pay $405 a month in child support for one child. And I was like, huh? What? Yes. And then it was like, if you don't pay it, you're going to jail. But remember how I said it was a thick packet? Oh, because he sued me back in June, I had arrears. It started back in June. So I had $405 going back to June. So I had like, you talking about clutching your pearls. So if the judge had said, oh, she went out there and got a job, she making 50,000, they would have charged me even more. Like, you know what I mean? Assessed me even more. So thank you. He was on the low end. Thank you, Judge. However, so when I got the child support, remember, she told me I was going blind to the eye doctor. I came home that night. I get this packet and it took my breath away. I'm like, I got to pay $405 a month. And then I had arrears. So it was like $3,600 or something. I'm like, how am I gonna pay this? But remember, it was the last day of the year. And what do most of us do? We go to church. So I went to my church, and you know how you laugh and cry at the same time? Because to me, it was utterly ridiculous that he won. He had so much more money than I do, and resources and everything. And so that part of it was just like outlandish. And I always try to laugh at find a silver lining. But I was crying too because I was scared, like, how am I gonna pay this? And they were serious, they was gonna lock me up and take my passport and all that. And I remember I went to church and I was in the pew, and my pastor talked about the children of Israel and when they walked through the Red Sea and how they had to leave behind everything that they knew. But think about that. Like, I'm scared of water to swim like that. So you mean to tell me I gotta face one of my deepest fears, or I'm going to die, or it's like either face your deepest fear. Sometimes your deepest fear is faith in yourself, faith in God that he can do it, because you've never seen it done like that or on that level, right? And then the other part is like, what's behind you? It's like, am I going to stay behind and deal with this army who could kill me, or I'm going to walk out on faith and trust God? And I remember when he was preaching and he talked about God parting the Red Sea, and I was just like, God, I'm going to trust you. And I'm just going to walk and believe. And that's it. That's just it. Sometimes, y'all, it just has to come down to that's it. And I want to interject something because you're a woman of faith. Being a woman of faith, don't shy away from self-improvement and personal development. To me, they go hand in hand, because a lot of them explain what the Bible's trying to teach you. They really do. Like, and God is saying, you can do all things, and you can have it, and God will bless you. A lot of times, we always don't believe that, but maybe if you hear Les Brown say it, if you hear Jim Rohn say it or whatever, it could just make it a little more sense. But I literally had to merge everything that I had been reading. Remember, a book a week, everything I was reading, my faith and Bible, and they came together. And I just said, God, I trust you, and this is what I want, and I'm trusting you. Don't you know, within 9 days, God turned everything around. Remember the eye surgery I had to get? I got like a world-renowned surgeon. She did my eyes. My eye. The surgery went well. I had people who supported me. Remember the child support that I owed? Remember that big, huge arrear? Now, some people may be like, well, I'll just keep the arrear, and I'll just keep. No, they will harass you. And I said, I'm a diva and I don't want to live like that. I don't want you snatching my passport. I don't want you snatching my license. I don't want this heavy burden on me. Remember I told you my BMW broke down? God told me, all right, that BMW you had, call up Mr. Frank and tell him that you have a car, you want to sell it. I was scared. The old Chanel, I'm like, but what if he says no, I'm scared. But this time, remember I said, God, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to walk. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I called him up and said, hey, listen, I got to pay this child support. And, I got my car, because he had been asking me about my BMW. It was just sitting in the driveway. I was like, listen, I just need to sell it, da. And in no time, because see, some of us, we miss our blessings because we drag our feet and we keep looking at the situation and we keep saying, oh, well, tomorrow. That was a Thursday. I met up with him, and he gave me, I had the title and everything. He gave me more money than what I needed. So it was enough money. You know what he said to me? He said, I see my daughter in you. So he gave me more than enough money for the car, and he had a tow truck come and get the car. And so he gave me the money. So it was enough money to pay off all of the arrears. I remember going down to child support and I said, I want to pay off my arrears. They're like, why you want to do that? I was like, why not? Like, I don't want to. He said, hey, and one was like, you don't have to pay. And then this guy said, miss, if you want to pay it because you don't want us on your back. I said, you got that right. So I had enough money to cover the arrears. And I had spoken that into existence to my family. They thought I was joking, but I was serious. Like, I'm going to pay off my child support. I don't care. So I paid off the child support. God took care of my eyes. I landed a job, not a job. I landed a contract with the school. They were paying me a couple $1,000s a month to come in for a few hours to empower their girls. So I had some income coming in now. So I mean, I could pay the $400. And remember, I was homeless. I was staying with my sister. And I wanted a 2-bed. My mentor said, write down what you want. I said, I want a 2-bedroom apartment. It needs to have really big windows because, my eyes are sensitive. I need to be near my sister. I need to be near the church. I need to be near public transportation because I didn't have a car back then. And I was just led to start searching as if I had what I needed. And I remember, I guess I called someplace, I don't remember. And they called me back and was like, hey, come and take a look at what we have, our place. And I said, okay. I went there and it was everything that I wrote down. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was huge. Big giant windows, all the sun. It was near my church. It was near my sister. It was right up the street from the train. I was like, this is crazy. But I was like, I ain't got no money though. God was like, have I led you astray thus far? No, just trust me. And then a church mother of the church I used to go to, she said, God will never take you to something and bring you inside of something and never give it to you. I held on to that. Remember, she said that months ago. I held on to that. Like, wouldn't that be kind of cruel? Now that we have kids, if I know it's something my kid want, and I'm not going to not do so I said, okay, cool. And I was just like, well, I'm gonna just act as if I'm gonna get this apartment and I have everything. But I was like, God, I ain't gonna waste these people's time, but I don't have a down payment. I don't have anything. So a still small voice. That's why I want so many of your listeners to learn to get silent and quiet. You have the answers. God loves you so much that he's going to give you the answer. Whether you tune into this summit, whether it's a commercial you watch on TV, it's a sign walking down the street, it's a good friend calling you up. God is trying to talk to you, trying to talk to you in your sleep. And a lot of times you know the answer. You're not listening. And Deepak Chopra said, we have so much chatter in our minds that somebody can throw the Empire State Building in your mind. You wouldn't even notice it. It's true. And so just getting quiet in the mornings and just trusting, because a lot of times with single moms, you have to learn to trust yourself. So I just got real quiet and I'm like, oh, I ain't got no money, right? All that. God said, track down some money. You made an investment years ago when I was working. Track down that money. I'm like, all right, well, okay. Y'all, I had made an investment like $500. I had almost $6,000.
No way. And you forgot about it?
I totally forgot about it.
Wow. Isn't it amazing how God set you up? Because I just thought about that, because you know what? Something similar happened to me. It's so crazy. So and I don't think I've shared this publicly before, but when you said that, the same thing happened to me. So when I was in Detroit, at the time I was renting, and then the market started to increase. And so I had friends who were being priced out of their apartments and they couldn't afford them anymore. And so I heard the Lord say, buy a condo. And I was like, okay. And there was a condo that I wanted, but I kept feeling like, okay, I wanted it, right? The Lord was like, no, that's not your house. And so he brought me to this foreclosed condo. And I was like, I don't know, it's not the one I wanted. But he was like, this is the one. And so I ended up moving forward with it. And so the market ended up increasing. And so I would have ended up paying more for my rent when it was time for me to renew. And then guess what? A few years later, I was pregnant, single mom, just started my entrepreneurship journey, but I had left my job earlier than I wanted to because of because of workplace bullying. And like, I feel you when you were talking about your hair was falling out, the same thing was happening to me at my job. And so I ended up leaving my job, got pregnant not long after, became a single mom not long after that. And the bottom fell out of my finances. The bottom fell out of everything in my life. And so because I was in finances, I was able to amass quite a bit of money in terms of my savings. All of that was gone because I was now living off my savings, trying to figure out how I was going to move forward, pregnant as a single mom, and ended up battling pregnancy, depression, and so much of me just shut down. And it got to the point, I'm like, at least I have my condo, like, faking it to everyone on social media. And like, you know me forever. Like, and so it's just, I was going through so much in my life with just the bottom, just, I cannot emphasize it enough. Financially, the bottom, it was like the rug was taken out from under me. And everything that I had was gone. It got to the point where I was trying to sell my BMW, but I would have ended up owing more. I would have had to pay them to take it away because I was underwater on my car note. So I couldn't even afford to get rid of my car. It would cost me money. And I just remember getting to the point where I'm like, at some point, the rest of my savings is going to be gone trying to keep up this condo. And I could feel the Lord say, are you going to worship me? Are you going to worship your home? And I was just like, when somebody actually was somebody who said that, who was in a similar situation, she said that she had this huge house and she had worked hard for it. It was on her vision board, everything. And the Lord told her, are you going to worship me? Or are you going to worship plywood? And
Mm.
when I was talking to her at church, just like struggling, like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot sustain this home anymore. But what am I going to do? I've had my kids' nursery professionally decorated. Like, everything looked good on the outside, but I'm like, I can't pay for this anymore. I can't afford it. And she said, I'm going to tell you what the Lord told me. Are you going to worship me or are you going to worship plywood?
Mm.
And I was just like, the house has got to go. And I had to sell my dream home. And I was devastated. I was devastated. But it's so funny how things work because that home that the Lord gave me 4 or 5 years earlier, because the market and where I lived had appreciated so much, that home that I initially said no to the Lord on, when I sold it, became the very thing that allowed me to live. I shut down my business for 3 years because at that point, I just emotionally could not continue to show up and empower everyone every single day. And I was broken. I'm sitting here getting media features and everything. People are like, congrats, girl, congrats, right on Facebook. But I was crying. I was devastated. I was battling depression. I was not okay. And I just kept trying to show up. And that me obeying the Lord to number one, buy the house, and me obeying the Lord when he told me to sell it. The Lord worked everything out. And for 3 years, I did not have to worry about money at all.
Mm.
And I was able to pour myself into healing, pour
Mm.
myself into getting the healing, the emotional healing that I needed because the Lord truly did provide.
Mm.
It was,
Yes, that
yeah,
has been my word. When yeah, that has been my word for the past year is provision. God truly provides. And so we get back to the story real quick. Um, I had money saved away. I didn't even know it. And it's so funny how God will blind you from certain things or not allow you to even see things until it's time. Because had I known about that money before, I probably would have misused it, but for such a time as this. So I was able to like get the apartment, everything. And so when it came to custody, right? It's like, yes, I'm set up now. And I was praying every single day, Lord, give me my custody. And it never happened that way. And in 2015, after 3 years of fighting with him, I got to a point, I was like, Lord, let your will be done. They say whatever in the best interest of the child. I was like, Lord, let your will be done. And I'm going to be okay with whatever. That's grown folk faith right there, because it might not happen the way you want it to, because I'm like, I don't understand. I'm a good mom. I should have it. But what we didn't know back then was that my son had autism. And although my son's father and I, we weren't getting along, whatever, he's an amazing father. And God used that situation to pour into and pull out something in my son's father. And they had this beautiful relationship, but I didn't know my son had autism. And back then, autistic children, they need to be stable. So there's no him running to my house this day no. And then once, and the judge even said, get him evaluated. He was so nasty, but he was like, get your son evaluated because there's something wrong with him. That judge was awful. So, but he was right that it was my son, he was diagnosed with autism. And once I came to grips with that, because I was already depressed from not seeing my son all the time, but getting that diagnosis that my son was autistic, I remember the day I found out, I cried and I cried for hours. And then God spoke to me and said, he's the one dealing with the situation, meaning my son, not you. And haven't I been taking care of him this whole entire time? I said, yes. And God said, get yourself together, learn as much as you can about it, but you get yourself together and you be a great mom for him. And your son is perfect the way he is. I got my marching orders and I said, okay. And so had I just kept fighting the way that I knew to fight, I could have really damaged my son. And I can honestly say, with his father, that is the best place for him. If my son didn't have autism, I would say I think it could be like with other children, but with his condition, that's the best place for him. And so remember I said, I made a mistake, y'all, but looking back, I accept the situation. And I remember in 2015, I started so I used to be afraid of my son's father. I just used to have fear of him. He's never hit me or anything, but I just used to just be fearful of him. Like, what's he going to do? If I make him mad, will he take me back to child support or custody or whatever? But in 2015, that fear started to loosen up. I stopped letting him bully me. And you know why? Because I started being more in control of my emotions and my feelings. I took responsibility for that. I still have my ups and downs, so I was still paying child support, and we had the custody. And, I'm building my business. And I appreciate what Aisha said about how she took time away from her business, because everybody's not built the same, y'all. There are some women who I admire and I love, and the whole world can be blowing up and they're still out there at the helm of their business. To this day, y'all, I'm not like that, because I feel like, I know God can still use me, but I come from such an authentic place that I wouldn't feel right trying to tell you how to be and what to do. I mean, and I'm not trying to like, these women say it with a big S on their chest, and it's like, without any compassion, without any empathy, and their whole world is crumbling and falling apart. I can't get down like that. And there were times I needed to step away, and I thank God for provision, and I thank him for grace. And I'm working on that, because if we want to have these empires and we want to build it, they still have to run without us. But I just wanted to say, for me in this space, and what Aisha said, I just couldn't be out there. Like, when I show up, you're getting the real me, you're getting the real heart. You're not getting this caricature or this persona that I made up. Do you understand where I'm coming from with that, Aisha? I can't get down like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just like, you have to be you. You have to be authentic. And it's so interesting, because I remember this song, Mariah Carey, Smiles. No, Circles. It's called Circles. And what she said on there was, put it on a smile with lipstick, put it on a big charade. It's kind of hard to keep pretending. It's getting harder. It's getting harder every day. Can't you see I'm cold and heartsick, right? I can't do it anymore. And it was breaking me to continue to show up. I'm like, I can either choose me, or I can choose almost like a mirage or a charade. And I couldn't do it. I had to choose me.
And the thing is, I think that's a skill some women have. I think it's great, but I just think in that season for me, I couldn't do it. So when I show up and you see me happy and smiling, that's real. It's not me pretending. And the thing is, I can tell when other people are pretending. And I'm like, but that's none of my business. So although we had custody worked out, and I was just like, fine, I had custody worked out, and child support. I used child support as the best thing that could have happened to me because it made me show up. Because remember, they wouldn't put me in jail if I ain't show up. So I had to make the money. I had to do all that stuff, right? So I'm showing up and showing up for my business in a big way. I still have my hurdles and different things like that. So ladies, this is when it got real interesting. The end of 2016, I had some business issues with some women that I was dealing with, and like we had a falling out. It was public, it was nasty. That hurt and that stung, but I was like a little wounded, but I kept going. And so I remember in January, my son's father and my son, we went to celebrate my son's little birthday. And a bomb was dropped on me. And this is crazy, but this is the stuff people don't talk about, but it's the kind of conversations you really need to have so that you don't go off the deep end. So I'm like, okay, I hadn't been with this man in like a number of years at this point. It was so much animosity, but you try to get along, whatever. He had started dating someone else. That's fine. I was dating someone else. And I was seriously dating someone else. I had never seen him date anyone seriously. But the thing is, it bothered me because this woman was around my son more than I was. And I'm like, I spent all these years in custody court, all these thousands of dollars, and this Susie come lately, and like, she was doing the most. Like, I can see if you're dating someone and they have a child, fine. But like, she was just doing too much, doing his homework, signing his homework and stuff like that. Like that might seem petty, but I'm like, you're not his mom. Like, no. And then my son told me, she told him to call her mom. I hit the fan. I'm like, I don't even know her.
No,
and
wait, you can't blow past that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay.
And I went off. I mean, I was like really hurt. Like, that's not fair. And I'm like, she's spending more time with my son than me. And that like crippled me on top of like the business stuff. That just like crippled me because I'm like, wait, who is this woman and what is going on? And another thing too with single moms, everybody paints you as the jealous ex, the petty, jealous, bitter baby mama, the petty, bitter, jealous ex. That's not always the case. And also too, like, we don't look at the human side of it. Like, okay, you had a child or you had children with this person. Most women want it to work. Like, you do want it to work. You have kids, for crying out loud. Like, that's normal. That's natural. So if you're a woman and like right now you really wanted to work with your children's father, I'm not going to beat you down and you're jealous and you're crazy, you're deranged. That's quite natural. I think it would be unnatural to not, unless it's something crazy. But do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's natural. If a woman, for example, I think it was a football player, Cam Newton. He had 4 children with this woman. He decided he's not going to marry her or whatever. And people are like, well, she cool because she's taken care of monetarily. I'm like, but y'all don't think she wanted that to be her husband? She has 4 kids with him. Like, and they're like, well, she don't need that. And I'm like, see, this is the nonsense that happens. But as a woman, it's natural for you to desire that. So I'm putting that out there because you still can have like feelings. You had a child with this person. I think it's unnatural if you don't have any feelings. Like, can we stop? It's this false narrative. So with that being said, mind you, we hadn't been together for years. And we never even entertained anything like that. But seeing him with another woman, and this woman was around my child, like, oh my gosh, the worst part was when we went to T-ball. My son started T-ball. Now, her son and my son went to the same school. Her son is a grade behind mine. I don't know how she met my ex or whatever, but my son's father was like, I said, I want to spend more time with him. He's like, okay, come to T-ball. I couldn't get in contact with them. I showed up to T-ball. T-ball got like 1 trillion kids the first day. I'm like, where are they? Where are they? I see my son. He's like, there's Romani. There she is. And I look, and this woman is toting my child to the T-ball. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Who is she? Because by then we didn't even meet. He didn't even introduce us. I'm like, Harpo, who is this woman? And so I was just like, okay, this is weird. Then, oh my gosh, y'all. They put on a performance of a lifetime. She was acting like she was the coach, like helping to coach the kids, and she was like out on the field and all this stuff and hugging on my son and all. And I'm like, that's too much. And like I had never met her before, so it was just too much. And my son's father at the time, it was a lot of animosity. He didn't even say, "Hey, this is so and so." My son had to introduce me to her. Like, "Hey, mom, this is so and so, so and so. This is my mom." And I'm like, you talking about somebody that was crushed. And I used to hear about people going through custody cases, and I'd be like, "Why are these people tripping so much over the kids?" Custody is very nasty, and you feel like, that's my child that I birthed into the world. No one else should be spending more time with him than me. So that sent me down a spiral. In 2017, I was so depressed, y'all. And see, it took a woman who had been through and walked in my shoes, who had wisdom and compassion. She said, "Shalene, let's go to lunch." Because by then, y'all, I just shut down. I was just devastated, because it was like I wasn't spending as much time with my son. Sometimes he would call me, sometimes he would. It was just too much. So she sat me down. We went to a pizza shop, and I was just telling her what was going on, and she was telling me some things going on with her. And she said, "Well, Shalena, the first cut is always the deepest." I said, "What you mean?" She was like, "Well, just because you may have feelings for that person, or just because like you may have feelings deep down inside, but just because you don't want to be with that person, you haven't tried to get with them, and it could be for," she said, "I don't care how many years it is." She was like, "The first real relationship that you see them in will cut you to your core." I was like, "But I don't understand. I'm not even trying to get with him." She said, "Honey, listen, the first real relationship will cut you to the core." And when I was just honest with myself, like, this hurts. Because sometimes people, "I'm not hurt. It doesn't bother me. I don't care what he did. I don't care if you don't want to see it. I don't care." You need to get with someone who can help you be honest and say, "This hurt me. Like, this hurt me to my core. And I don't understand why I'm so hurt." Whitney Houston said it best. She said, "Why does it hurt so bad when I don't even love you anymore?" But see, it takes a wise woman who walked in your shoes and said, "Oh, honey, when that first real one," and she told me her story. And I was like, "So this is normal to feel this way?" She said, "Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of." And by her giving me permission to grieve, by her giving me permission to hurt, by her giving me permission to like bleed from the womb, she gave me permission to heal. And it took a while, but I started healing. And I remember like, I remember her telling me that, and I began to heal, but I was just still so, like, I was like depression. I was so, because it was just hurtful. And I remember it was the summer the equinox. What was it? What is the solar eclipse of 2017? It was in August. And I had took KC to see it. And I remember they told you to put the sunglasses on. I didn't even, I tried to look at the sun, but I put the sunglasses on and I laid out in that lawn. And it's so funny because I was grounding myself and I didn't know it. I laid out on the lawn and I looked up and I was just like, "God, you have to renew me or something. I need," and I tell you, that sun recharged me. And slowly but surely, I started like working my way and getting myself back together. By October, business was booming again. By the beginning of 2018, business was booming again. And I slowly started getting back to me, but I had to be honest that I was hurting. And then 2018, my stepmom had terminal cancer. And I remember being in a room with her, and she said, but she was laying on her deathbed, she's like, "God showed me you in a dream. You're just walking and pacing the floor back and forth, back and forth." She said, "Listen, God wants to use your mind, but it's too much in your mind. You need to let it go." And she said, "You know what I mean." And she was right. I needed to let that situation go. Like, and the thing is, another thing, ladies, I don't care how long it takes you to heal. I don't care how long it takes you to finally get over someone or not being afraid of us. The thing is heal. And remember, mine started in 2017. Here was the end of 2018. My stepmom was like, you need to, get yourself together. And I knew exactly what she meant. And I was like, God, if you could just show me and help me. So in January 5th, 2019, she passed away. And I remembered our conversation. And I just was like, God, I'm just going to work on me. And that's what I love about God and provision, because he gave me the space to heal. And so I started working on myself and everything. And by the time 2020 came, I was, oh my gosh, I was like, I mounted up on wings as eagles by then. But I took the time to work on me. And also 2020, I finally decided to close the chapter on my relationship. It had been on, this year makes 10 years. So it had been a while. And I decided to give the man, I had been dating him since 2014. And I'm gonna speak this publicly, I'm gonna be honest. Many of you may have someone really nice in your life. You might have someone waiting in the wing, but sometimes you can't even really enjoy that because of the hurt, because of what you think you deserve or you don't deserve. And you're like Aisha said, you're living in that past relationship. So you can't make room for what you have. So after Kobe Bryant died, January 26, 2020, I looked at my boyfriend and I said, listen, if anything happened to you, if anything happened to me, I don't want to be in the obituary like your special little friend. Like, you know what I mean? Let's just do this. Let's just get, because we have been together for so long. Like, let's just do it. And I chose at the time, I chose March 19th because it was the first day of spring of 2020. But I didn't realize it was a leap year. Had I known, I would have chose March 20th because that's the first day of spring. But for me, I closed that chapter of hurt and pain. That's why I chose to get married on March 19th, which was the first day of spring in 2020. And this was when the pandemic first, that was the week the world shut down. And it was so funny. We made it to the local newspaper and everything. And I just decided it was time for me to start living. I had this wonderful man who loved me. He loved my son. He wanted to be there, but I was like still wrestling with hurt. I decided, you know what? Let's just do this. Let me give myself permission to be loved. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this. And so in 2020, I got pregnant. And this is something else I want to share with you, because only like single moms or moms who had like a rough pregnancy can relate to this. So when I was with my son's father, my pregnancy I ended up in the hospital, but I really just wanted to be taken care of. Like somebody rub my feet, rub my belly, like go to my visits with me. You just wanted to feel like somebody cared. And I didn't get that the first time around. So it's the small things, but the second time around was so funny. I got the belly rubs. He would have gone to my doctor's appointments, but if it wasn't for COVID, because remember, 2021, COVID was in full effect. But it felt good to be loved. And it was a different experience going in the hospital, being married. They treat, we can be honest here, right? They treat you differently.
They do. Do you realize how I was treated in the hospital? And in my mind, I'm like, how dare you talk to me like that? I went to Duke. I'm like, and then sometimes I would drop my resume. I'm like, do you know where I went to school? I know students be like, I'm not like that. Like, why are you treating me like that?
That's the thing. When you're married, they treat you, I'm telling y'all, they treat you differently. They show you more.
Funny story. They were like, okay, your WIC benefits. I was like, I'm not on WIC. But they just assumed it because I'm a single mom. They kept talking to me about WIC. And I'm like, I'm not on WIC. Because they just make certain assumptions about who you are because you're a single mom. Okay. Yeah. I had to outburst.
Yeah, so listen, they treat you differently. And remember I told you about when you're married and you got to sign the birth certificate and all that? The lady came in and she was like, so here's the birth certificate paper. And I was like, hey, well, this is my husband. She's like, oh, it makes my job easier then. You don't have to sign the other papers. Because when you're not married, you have to sign extra paperwork. Like that's the stuff people don't understand, but they treat you differently. And I can say that because even though I was with my son's father, we were engaged, we weren't married. So I can tell you it's a difference. And it's I hate to say it, but it is a difference. They treat you differently. So I had my second child, my son. I didn't think I was gonna ever get married. I didn't think I was ever gonna have another child. And mind you, y'all, I got married at 40, 40 turning 40, no, at age 40. No, was it wait, 20, 20? I got married at the age of 40. Society tells you you're too old, ain't gonna happen. And then I had the audacity to get pregnant. So I'll be 43 this year. So I had my son at the age of 42. So I'm sharing it to tell you that don't let society put an age limit on you, like, oh, well, you're 40, you're too old, or oh, you're 41, you can't have a baby. Says who? So don't do that, because a lot of ladies, like they still want that. And that's okay. They still want to be married. They may want to have more children. That's okay. Don't let society like like stomp on your dreams. If you're a single mom, you might want to start a business. Okay, so what? Don't let society stop on your dreams. So this is where it all comes together, and God is going to put a beautiful bow on it. The whole time I was going through stuff with my son's father, I had a good girlfriend, my girlfriend Aisha Derricott in DC. And although my son's father, which is, we said a prayer because he's both kind of going through something similar. And I learned this from T. Harv Eker. He says, whatever you want, bless it. If you want to be rich, you want a nice car, whatever you want, bless it. You see somebody doing what you want to do, bless them. But bless it. And although my son's father was getting the heck on my nerves and he was in this relationship, I would always pray for him. God, please bless him, bless his business, bless his health, bless his relationship, bless him, even when he was hurting me. Because I needed my son's father to be the best man he could be for my son's sake. That's why you hate on your children's father. Like, don't you want your kids to have a good, but that's a different story. But I kept blessing him. And I keep a gratitude journal. Every day I would be grateful for him and write his name down because he was a great dad. And my prayer would be, please, can we be civil? Can we just show each other mutual respect? Like, that's all I wanted. And for y'all, that was about like a 10-year prayer. So when I got pregnant with my second son, my son KC was so happy, like, I'm having a little brother. He told his father. And okay, this was last year, the years kind of flow by, but this is 2022, right? So at the end of 2020, my son's father calls me up. He says, hey. I'm like, hey. He was like, I had a chance to think about some things, and I'm going to cut off my child support payments. I said, huh? See, after a while, ladies, we learn to stop looking a gift horse in the mouth. I said, huh? He said, I had a chance to think it over, and I don't need the money. Casey doesn't need the money, and it's not right, and you don't have to pay another red cent. I've been paying since 2013, June 2013. So I've been paying and paying. I said, okay, thank you. He said, I'm just gonna go down to the courts and I'm just gonna write a letter and they're gonna get rid of your payments. And I'm like, do y'all know how many times I asked him to do that? And he would tell me, no. I'm like, okay. So I said, okay, well, Merry Christmas to me, whatever. So January came by and I didn't believe he was gonna do it. And I got a letter in the mail and it said, all of your child support payments is all washed away. I didn't owe anything. It was like, it's all washed away. If you paid anything, we'll send it back. This is over. After like 7 or 8 years of that, y'all. And I just broke down crying. I was like, but I thank God that I got ahead of this child support and I use it as something to motivate me, because you got to come up with that money every month, right? And I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So I thank God for that. But God worked on that man's heart. And it's a Bible scripture that says the heart of the lion the heart of the lion is in the king's hands, or the heart of the king is in the Lord's hands, and God turns it whichever way. And I said, okay. And another thing I'm learning, ladies, is we don't have to snoop, we don't have to prowl. All things will be revealed. And you get wisdom, you stop arguing with people. You be like, okay, you gonna cut it off? Okay. So I later found out that he said that my son was so excited about having a baby brother. And my ex realized I got married, we were moving, and I was pregnant, and he wanted to give us a fresh start. I was like, well, blow
What?
me down. Well, blow me down. That's why I was, and also the beauty is we are now friends. We're very cordial. Matter of fact, we were talking just before we started talking, Aisha. We were just talking. We co-parent. There's mutual respect. I'm living my prayer. I'm living what I ask God for. And that's why I have to be emphatic about this. Don't let society feed you this contentious baby mama, baby daddy storyline. Don't let society make you believe you got to be a bitter baby mama or a bitter ex. No, you do not. You can co-parent. Yes, you can move past the pain. Yes, you can be respectful. So now my son knows that his parents love each other and they respect each other. You ready for this one? For years, my son's father would throw my son a party for his birthday and not invite me. So one time I go to my son's school, I'm minding my business. And the mother says, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry we couldn't make it to your son's party. I was like, what party? She was like, the party this past Saturday. I was like, oh, I didn't know. So for years, Casey had separate parties. And I looked at it like, well, Casey gets double the blessing. So he have a party here. We had a joint party in 2021. And it was like 100 people there. My husband was there. My baby was there. Both of our families were there. Like, that is major. You don't understand. We had separate parties for years and not by my choice. And I was just like, how God, but see, I had to work on me first and bring about the healing in me first. But look how God made the crooked places straight, right? And he healed. So Aisha, the story that you heard in 2014, this is now a beautiful ending. So I can sincerely say it may hurt. It may not feel good, but you always have a choice with how you respond. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that, you're not going to cry. But remember things. The first cut is the deepest. Always be honest with yourself. And like, if you have that girlfriend, you can be honest, like, girl, he played me, or I feel really bad. I'm very angry. Like, I'm very angry. Like, I'm ready to go around there and hurt him. If I had a gun, I would, like, so, come on. We need to just stop being fake all the time. Because you know what? I feel like if some people, some women had a friend like that they can be honest with, a lot of women wouldn't be in jail. They have a girlfriend like, I know it hurts, but it's not worth it. It ain't worth it. But your girlfriend can't tell you it's not worth it if you're not willing to be real and honest with how you're feeling, And remember, God makes crooked places straight. And the thing is, I have always been like a loving person. Don't allow the pain that you go through to change that. Because my prayer has always been, God, I just want to be like cordial. Because we were friends when we were, before we broke up, we were friends. Don't let that change who you are. Still be who you are. I can't tell you it's not going to be painful, because when you really love someone, you really hurt. You can't get, I don't see, and if somebody walk away, like whatever, I doubt they really loved you. I doubt that it was really love, because love hurts. So if a woman's like, I don't really care, some women are like that, or they pretend. But don't let anyone shame you into, you know, being something that you're not. So that's like the story and the how God made the crooked places of it straight. And I just truly thank God.
Okay, so my mind is like right now. I think that that was so powerful. It's just a beautiful story of God's redemption, God's love, God's hand, God's providence, God's restoration. And it's just powerful. It's just powerful to just see that mighty work of God. And when you put it that way, like this is the end of the story that started in 2014.
That
I
you
would
heard
never,
in 2014 that
yeah,
started.
that I heard,
Really,
yeah,
yeah.
that I heard in 2014. It's just, I'm speechless. I think it's beautiful. I'm just really caught up on the beauty and the redemption of
God,
everything.
they say God will give you beauty for ashes. And um, that's why summits like these are really important. And that's why, like, I'll never change this about me, that the being transparent, I'll never change that, because someone will listen to this. And like I said, we already set you up for this. We said, listen, you may not be going through this now, but humble yourself to listen. Because there was a lot of gems dropped in here. Like, listen, things you probably never thought about. But you can always dictate how you'll respond and how you'll act, and like, what you want. And I'm telling you, it just like, literally, I just got off the phone with my son's father, because he talks to me now. Like, we talk and we discussed it. It was horrible. Anytime I tell you about the separate parties, and lady was like, sorry, I can't make it to the party. And then once she realized that I wasn't even invited, she felt terrible, because she saw, as she knew I felt terrible. And she was like, oh, she didn't know that oh, so I'm just grateful to you, Aisha, for just having this platform, and extending this out. And if I just give just one last word of wisdom, is sit down, get quiet, and write out what you really want, what happiness or what life looks like to you. And if it's being married, if it's having more children, give yourself permission to dream and experience that. Like, to just like, we the pain can stifle you so much that you're too afraid to dream. You're too afraid to even allow yourself to see what it would feel like. It may not look the way that you want it. Like, I got married in a small little church. I had an orange jumpsuit, pantsuit or whatever. Of course, people want that big Cinderella wedding, but it was fun. Thinking back on it, it was in the middle of COVID. We could only have like 10 people. So we only had 7 people, including the
And I
pastor.
love the write-up. The write-up
Yeah,
was so awesome.
and we got to write up and everything. So, like, it may not look how you think it will, but just enjoy it.
And let me tell you that write-up. Okay, I promise, Aisha, I'm not a crier. I'm a G. I'm not gonna cry. But when I saw that write-up, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. It gave me a vision for what was possible for me, because I remember when my kids were like 1, I was talking to a cousin of mine, and she was saying, like, she's like, you'll get married. I was like, no, I won't. She's like, yes, you will. I said, like, she was just like, look, don't let someone else rob you of what God has for you. And you tuck stuff away like that. I'm just like, whatever. Like, she don't know. She don't know. She don't know me. She don't know. And when I saw that article, I was just like, it's possible. And just little things like that are kind of like the breadcrumbs. Because I had talked to my therapist. Actually, around that same time, my therapist said, when did you stop dreaming? And I was like, huh? But I was thinking dreaming in terms of entrepreneurship, right? Dreaming in terms of thinking bigger. But seeing your article had me realize that there was a certain part of life that I had closed off, locked away the key, And I was like, I'm gonna dream everything but this. And just knowing your story from what I heard in 2014, when I saw that, and I knew at that point, obviously you were married again, and just seeing how you were living, I was just like, it's possible. And maybe, just maybe, it's safe to be able to dream again, little by little, step by step, healing by healing. Maybe, just maybe, it's safe to begin dreaming again. And so it's just so funny. It's just like people don't realize it, that when you show up, when you share your testimonial, you never realize who is paying attention
Mhm.
and how that is giving them encouragement and hope. And I'm going to stop talking before I start crying, and that would be weird.
That's the thing. It's, you mentioned safety, because as women, we don't make a move unless we feel safe. It's safe and it's possible. And you have to be open for how it shows up in your life. And you have to be open for how it shows up. But I tell you, it really starts with you. I started loving me more on a different level in 2020. I really did. And that's attractive, ladies. When you start loving you on a different level, everybody and their mama is attracted to you now, because you become a light, and now I have this health journey, which is self-love on a totally different level. And that one is, and that, but it's, even that part of my healing, that couldn't have taken place unless I did all the other stuff, all the inner healing and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, so it is safe and it is so possible. And I can so see, if that's what you want, I so see it for you. You like for the right person, is a no-brainer. It is, I so see that for you. So don't stop dreaming of that. And I thank you for that, because a lot of times we do. We cut off different, we stop dreaming in different parts of our lives. What we think is safe or what we think is attainable. So I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you.
Yay, thank you. So this has been powerful. This has been powerful. I just thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so transparent. Thank you for your vulnerability. And it's so interesting. Like, honestly, with each interview, I feel like God, this is so crazy, right? So God told me to do this, right? And so I'm just thinking like, okay, this is how he's just going to like inspire all these ladies through this summit. And it's so funny how God works. God is like been inspiring me through the different stories, through everything, and just even expanding my own vision for what is possible. For thank you. So thank you for being a part of this and saying yes.
Welcome. Definitely, definitely. So we have to make sure that the link to the article that you referenced, that somehow that's a part of
We'll put that in there.
yeah, they'll be able
Yeah.
to definitely get that, because if it inspired you like that, then I'm sure it will inspire other people, especially once they listen to the interview.
Yes, I'll make sure it is at the right below the video, so that way people can just click and just see it. So how can the ladies get in contact with you?
Yes. So on all social media platforms, I am Shalena Diva. So that's SHALENA DIVA. And I have my primary website that I like people to go to is called bestsellingyear.com. So it's all one word, bestsellingyear.com. There you can read more about my story, and you can learn about my online company, my online coaching business. There are some wonderful free gifts, and there's actually a free guide on how you can start your online business, taking what you know. I love to say, turn your mind into an ATM. There's so much that you can offer. There's so much that you can share, and you can monetize that. So I walk you through the 7 steps that you need to get a grip on and understand, so that you can start monetizing your knowledge and what you know.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been amazing. See, ladies, now do you see why I'm like, you have to get that all access pass, because this video right here, it needs to be a part of your library, like for real, because you are going to go back to it over and over and over and over again, because there are so many different parts and pieces to Shalena's story, where if you're at the beginning of her story, you might need the beginning part of it. If you're in the middle of the story, you might need the middle of it, right? If you're kind of coming out of it, then you need to understand what life can look like and how you can come out of it with grace, right? So definitely pick up that all access pass. And again, share your biggest ahas in the Facebook group. And remember, with your all access pass, you also get a 20-minute breakthrough call with me. And so this has been such a pleasure to be your host. Thank you so much for joining. Again, my name is Aisha Taylor, and I help single moms to grow their faith, walk in purpose, and own their finances. Until next time.